It is Monday, and so we're back with some recipes from the Herbal Apothecary. And we're going to be doing a series for the next four Mondays. We're going to be looking at different ways to approach pain management. So we've talked about that in a couple of different forms. And today what I want to look at is specifically the use of salves in topical application. So now we're narrowing, we've worked with liniments, we've taken internal compounds, right? Now we're gonna be looking at oil extracts made into a semi-solid state and applied topically. There's a lot of different plants that are used in this method, with a lot of different applications, different reasons why you would choose to use them, because when we talk about pain management, we're not talking about a single entity, right? Pain is complex, pain is multifactorial. There's a lot of different reasons why we experience pain, a lot of different causes, and a lot of different ways that we can go in and impact pain, and a lot of different herbs and other compounds that we can use. And so I want to go into that nuance, because that nuance is where herbalism really works best, right? That nuance is where we can have fun, we can have creativity. Hi, Kat. We can, hi, Ren. Hi, Ren. Oh, you also are a great way to start the week. I'm so happy to see your names pop up when you're there. Thank you so much. So, so we're looking at pain management, right? Using, hold on just a moment while I get Kat up to speed. Using topical application of oil extracts in a salve form. And so over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be exploring 4 different plants that we use topically for pain relief, but they have 4 very, very different areas of chemistry and access. And so this just makes us better herbalists, right? And we can take that. This is kind of like the same concept as for you folks who've been around for a long time. You know, for years we did the plant meditations, right? The Monday plant meditations, where we'd look at a single plant and be able to just kind of experience, this is what just cinnamon by itself tastes like or feels like. This is what just rose feels and tastes like. And as you do that, you can kind of compile in your head a materia medica that you really love to use. This is kind of the same thing. We're just kind of narrowing that field to, okay, a materia medica of topical application of plants. So the first plant that we're going to work with today is Cayenne. And that's because there's a very specific physiological effect that Cayenne has that's really, really cool when it comes to managing pain, and also, of course, has its limitations. So I'm going to first, we'll first talk about the chemistry, and then I'll talk about how I've kind of progressed a little bit last night and this morning, so that we could kind of go zippy through making it. Yeah, let me show you what I did. So with Cayenne, the primary constituent of interest in Cayenne for topical application for pain relief is a class of constituents called capsaicins, right? So capsaicins are oleoresins, right? This is a really important piece of information. Oleoresins. So let me tilt you folks. There you go. So oleoresins, as we've talked about in class before, are large, big, heavy molecules. They're sticky, as one would imagine from the name oleo, meaning oil, resin, meaning resin, right? So they're a sticky, tenacious resin that holds on to plant material. Now, sticky, tenacious plant medicine holds on to plant material, but it also holds on to human material, onto tissue. Debbie, hi. I'm glad to get another chance to be here live. Oh, I'm so glad that you're with us. Yeah, thank you. And so we can assume whenever we're seeing that we're using something that has an oleoresin that we're putting directly on tissues, this would also apply to something that was oleoresin rich that we're drinking, and applying to internal tissues topically, right, too. So these oleoresins, when they're applied to tissues, they generally are going to have an irritating effect because they're holding on to tissue that doesn't really like to have oils, resinous compounds attached to it. So almost always when we apply oleoresins to the skin, there's going to be some type of activation in the underlying tissues. Okay. Now with the capsaicin oleoresin, there's a very specific activation, and it's really cool. In the nerves that underlie the tissue, right? These are the signaling nerves from the peripheral nervous system, right? The peripheral nervous system is gathering information and bringing it into central processing in the brain and the spinal column for processing information, then going out and exerting a response. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning. With capsaicin, when capsaicin attaches to pain sensors in the skin, it stimulates the release of a specific neurotransmitter. Okay, so neurotransmitters are compounds that send messages along neurological pathways to the brain, right? So this neurotransmitter is called substance P. P for pain. And so this is one of the primary neurotransmitters of nociception, of the feeling of pain, right? So it's produced by the nerves, basically to send the message along the neurological pathway to the brain of ouch, right? There's pain here, don't like what's happening, not at all happy about what's happening with these nerves, is the message that substance P sends. So when you apply capsaicin oleoresins to the skin, what it does is it increases the release of that substance P in those nerves that it's applied to. That's one of the reasons why we get the feeling of heat. That feeling of heat is the feeling of those nerves sending signals to the brain, right? Now, the thing about that is that as the capsaicin is stimulating the release of the substance P, it is simultaneously inhibiting new production of substance P, right? So it's causing the cells to release what they have in storage, but it's inhibiting the cell's ability to make new neurotransmitters so that they continue sending that signal. And so what happens is the first time that you use a Cayenne-based cream topically, you're going to have a warm feeling on the skin. You want that warm feeling. That is specifically what we're looking for. That warm feeling shows that we're activating those neurotransmitters. So you apply the Cayenne salve to the skin, you're activating those neurotransmitters. That's going to be for a couple of days. You'll continue with that same application method. And then after a little while, how long a little while depends entirely on you and your body, your sensitivity, so many other factors, right? But after a little while, you'll notice, hey, I'm not feeling that feeling of heat anymore on that area that I apply the salve to. That's because you've started that depletion therapy. Now you can increase your application, increase either the amount, the strength, the number of applications through the day, until you once again increase it up to hit that heat threshold. You want to bring it back up again and get that warmth. You never want to feel uncomfortable. You don't want to put so much the first days that you are burning yourself. You can absolutely do that. You just want to initiate that heat response. And so by going up slowly over time, you just decrease the transmission of pain signals. Now let's be clear about what type of pain that we're working with here, right? Because that was the first thing that we talked about, is there's a lot of different types of pain, a lot of different ways that we can work with it. When we're working with Cayenne, we are very specifically working with nerve pain. We are very specifically looking at exactly this pathway. We're inhibiting this production of this neurotransmitter. We are also, that's not entirely true, we are also having an energetic action, right? Because it's cayenne. So there's also going to be movement, right? There's going to be blood circulation underneath. There's going to be movement of lymph. There's going to be movement of energy underneath there. Now, that may be something that you don't want, right? So consider the fact that maybe you have the underlying tissue is really red and hot and swollen, right? The energetic pattern of that skin, like we were talking about last week, we were talking about heat signs in the skin, right? If you see heat signs in the skin, you might question, do I really want to be using this particular method of pain relief, given that where I'm going to be applying it already has those heat signs, right? Redness, heat, swelling, inflammation. There are two other plants that also reduce substance P that could be substituted for cayenne that are not quite as hot. One of them is ginger, and one of them is black pepper. So you could use those two, or you can combine the ginger and black pepper and cayenne, make a combination formula. So that's the why of why we would choose cayenne as a pain relief. It's very specific. So some of the best usage of this is for chronic pain conditions in the nerves, right? So what's called neuralgia. Neuralgia is specifically, literally, pain in the nerve. One of the really common forms of neuralgia is diabetic neuropathy. So neuropathy is damage to the nerves, often in the extremities of the body. We see this as a late stage issue with diabetes, as elevated levels of insulin in the blood can cause damage to the nerves and cause damage to the blood vessels. And so we see that in the periphery of the body where circulation is poorest. We're going to see a lot of damage to the nerves and the blood vessels, as we just don't have flow of oxygen, blood flow in there. You don't get nutrients in there, and the tissues start to die. They just start to break down. And so we have numbness, tingling, right, that is associated with nerve inflammation and death. And so you can use cayenne cream has been specifically used for treatment of neuralgias and neuropathy, for diabetic neuropathy. It's an exceptional compound to use.
Is it usable for neuropathy from people who have had chemo as well?
Yes, okay. Absolutely, yes. So the question was, is it applicable for neuropathy from chemo? Yeah, any kind of nerve damage, particularly when, like in both the diabetes and the side effects from chemo, the pain message isn't telling you anything helpful, right? Sometimes pain is a good thing. Sometimes you don't want to be suppressing those pain signals because those pain signals are telling you not to do anything stupid, right? And so you definitely don't want to do that. But when it's just this long-standing nerve pain, cayenne is going to be one of the most helpful. Now, there's another neuralgia that we see it commonly used for in specific studies on, and that is post-herpetic neuralgia. So the pain along nerve pathways that come as a side effect of having shingles. So in shingles, we have a herpes simplex virus that lives in the nerve pathways and travels along nerve pathways. And so when it activates, when that virus activates, it causes very severe pain along the pathways of nerves and causes lesions that can erupt in the skin, very painful lesions. But even after those lesions heal, we often see a long-standing issue of neuralgia. The post-herpetic, there's a chronic inflammation of those nerves. They're still not kind of quieted down after that flare-up. And so cayenne is also specifically used for that. There are very well-designed clinical studies on the use of cayenne. Now, a lot of people with post-herpetic neuralgia, which is, that when we look at, hi Sandra, hello, when we look at what nerve pain feels like, it's often a feeling of burning, of electrical shock, right? Of sharp pains. And so someone who's got this chronic nerve pain may think, I am not putting on my burning pathways of chronic pain. You want me to put cayenne on top of that? That just does not seem like a really good idea, right? Intuitively, you might think, what I want to do is cool that. It feels like a heat sign, right? It feels like one of these heat patterns. And you could certainly try that. But this specifically, what we're looking for is specifically this neurological action. And so making a very mild solution and slowly increasing it up, right? You don't have to go all the way to the strongest medicine all at once. We can start with a small amount and slowly increase it up, dilute it as needed, and increase. So you can go to a pharmacy and find cayenne creams, capsaicin creams. They'll be called capsaicin creams or salves. And they generally will run you about $20, $30 a bottle. And it's ludicrous because all it is cayenne extracted into an oil base. And y'all have cayenne and y'all have some kind of oil, and that's all you need to make a capsaicin treatment. That's all you need. So I have some cayenne that I ground up here. Now, what I want to do is I want to focus on oleoresin extraction, right? Of course, a plant has a complex chemistry, and we want to honor and respect the complex chemistry of a plant. You make your own cayenne salve, 70,000 heat unit. Exactly, and isn't it like super easy, Sandra? It is bananas. If you go into, next time you're in a pharmacy, go check out the capsaicin salves, because the prices are nuts when you consider how easy it is to make a very, very good. I'm sure your cayenne salve is excellent. Now, Sandra brought up a really important point. So when we're talking about cayenne, not all cayenne is the same, right? So your cayenne is going to be measured in Scoville heat units. Scoville heat unit. So you'll see as HUs or SHUs. A heat unit is a measure of activity. So that, in people who are reading the chat, that's what Sandra was referencing there. She's got a nice, strong, therapeutic grade cayenne with 70,000 heat units. Now, a heat unit measurement is a 1x measurement would be that it takes 1 volume of water to dilute the capsaicin that I have in the sample, to dilute it to a point where I cannot taste it anymore, right? If you dilute it in half with water and you can't taste it, that would be a heat unit of 1. If you have to dilute it 10 times, put 10 times the amount of water to the capsaicin in order to not taste it, that would be a 10x. Dilution, right? Or a 10x concentration. So the Scoville heat unit rating system is based on that dilution. So Sandra's has a 70,000 heat unit, right? 70,000 heat unit means that it takes 70,000 parts of water to dilute 1 part of the cayenne that Sandra's is using in order to make it not taste as strong. So you can see as the heat unit concentration goes higher, the strength of the cayenne goes higher. Used to be the standard cayenne was 40,000 heat units. They are increasing it all the time, and now you get a lot of other peppers, right? Hybridization, and the race to the highest heat unit rating is kind of bonkers as people are going to all of these places where they have these native peppers and then hybridizing peppers in order to increase those up. So you don't want a bonkers high heat unit rating because it's hard to dilute it down to something that's comfortable. But you do want something at least 40,000 heat units. So 70,000 heat units is great, it's perfect. And you should, when you are buying cayenne, it should have a heat unit rating, because they can go down to 4,000 or 10,000 units, and that's going to be, that's spicy paprika, right? That isn't a cayenne really. So that's what the heat unit rating is. Thank you, Sandra, so much for bringing that up. So now what I do, Sandra, and tell me if you do this. So last night I ground up my cayenne. These are Oshala Farm cayenne peppers. So I had the last of a batch of peppers. This was really the impetus for this whole thing. This was the last of last year's batch of peppers from Oshala. It's like, oh, I want to make something beautiful with that because these are precious. So I ground them up last night, and then what I did is that I treated them with alcohol. So more people are using this now. This used to be a really arcane method of extraction of oils, but Cami McBride is teaching it a lot, and she's doing some great work in doing oil extraction. I learned from Michael Moore. You can read about it in Michael Moore's texts, and and it comes from the National Formulary method of oil extraction. If you look at the National Formulary, the methods of medicine making that were kind of standard in the United States Pharmacopoeia, up until 1947, I believe, was the latest one. They had a National Formulary method of extraction of oils that used two intermediary solvents that you're using in between your final solvent. The final solvent in this case would be oil, right? So we use intermediary solvents in order to enhance extraction of these constituents that we're looking at. You use Cami McBride's alcohol method. Yeah, so Cami McBride's alcohol method is a variation of the National Formulary method. The difference is, and this was initially taught by Michael Moore, so if you go into Michael Moore's text, you'll see that's where pretty much everyone kind of refound it as he was going through all of his eclectic and physiomedicalist books. So in the National Formulary method, they used alcohol and they also used ammonia. I'm not a fan of ammonia. I'm not putting ammonia in my herbs. So the true NF formula did use that, and that may be a better solvent, but there's other issues around that, and I don't want to do that. But yes, absolutely, using alcohol. So alcohol, specifically high-proof alcohol. So you can't use vodka, you can't use your low percentage Everclear that we get here in California. It's only 120 proof. You don't want to be putting water into your oils, right? Water in oils is problematic. You want a very high proof alcohol. This is 190 proof alcohol, organic cane alcohol. And so I ground up the peppers last night and I treated them with alcohol. Now, I don't treat every herb with oil. I don't think the intermediary alcohol method is necessary for all plants that you're doing an extraction. It's not harmful, generally. There are some things that are damaged by alcohol, right? But those things are generally not going to be extracted into an oil base anyway, so you wouldn't worry too much about it. But I just don't think that it's necessary for everything. However, specifically when you're dealing with resins, you definitely want to do an intermediary solvent. It's going to make a world of difference in the ability that you have to extract these constituents. So, last night, I ground these up. I put alcohol in there. I use far less than Cami suggests, more just Michael's suggestions. I just want to make it look like sort of damp sand. With other plants, I would take this out and I would pass it around so you can feel the proper consistency. But this is Cayenne, and you don't want to be like touching and playing with Cayenne. But that's what it looks like. It's like damp sand. And so I'm going to throw some oil on there. Now, we're going to do a couple of things here that are, that make it a little bit different. First of all, I'm going to add the oil. The oil that I'm going to add for this, I'm not going to go into oil options because that's a whole different class there. But I am going to say the oil that I'm using for this is sesame oil. The reason that I'm using sesame oil specifically for this is I'm going to throw the oil in here and I'm going to extract it. I'm going to blend it. It's going to be loud, so I'll give you a heads up. You're going to want to reduce the volume. I'm going to blend it with the oil for a few minutes, get it kind of warmed up, agitated, get that right. Agitation is one of the methods that we have to enhance extraction. We want to use all of the methods of enhancing extraction we have in our toolkit. So agitation is one of those. So a good blending for a little while. We already got that alcohol in there. The alcohol started the process of breaking the bonds of the oleoresin from the plant material. So that's been going on all night long. That alcohol has been slowly just kind of detaching that oleoresin from the plant material. Now we're going to go in and we're going to get some agitation in there, get the oil introduced there. Now we have two solvents, the oil and the alcohol. And then the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to put this over direct heat. I'm not going to do a water bath. I'm going to go direct heat, directly over a heat source. And we don't generally do that with oils because heat is one of the primary enemies of oils. And so if we try to heat oils up, oftentimes we can cause damage to the base. However, we want that heat because oleoresins are stubborn. They like to hold on, and we want all of that oleoresin extraction we can get. So I want to get some rapid heat. Rapid heat is really, really good at just quickly extracting cayenne. Now, if you don't want to do this quickly, if you're like, I can wait a month to do this, then you don't necessarily have to do the heat treatment. I want this done today because I want you all to be able to take it with you. So I'm gonna hit some heat. And the reason then that I'm using sesame oil is because sesame oil has a specific constituent that when it is heated, it releases, and that's called a compound called sesamin. And sesamin is an antioxidant that specifically protects the fatty acids of sesame oil. So when you heat sesame oil, it releases its own antioxidant to protect itself. So I really like sesame oil as an oil to use if I am putting direct heat onto something. So if you're not doing direct heat, you may choose to use another kind of oil and do that. So generally, you're going to want to do maybe a standard kind of 1-to-5 ratio. When we are extracting herbs into a medium, into a solvent, whether we're making a tincture or a glycerite or a vinegar or an oil, generally that 1-to-5 ratio, 1 ounce of dried herb to by weight to 5 ounces by volume of our solvent is going to be generally a really good ratio to ensure that you are saturating the solvent with as much plant material as possible, but not wasting plant material by putting too much in there. So with this, I just kind of estimated because I knew that there were about 2 ounces of cayenne in there because I had two ounce bags. So I had 2 ounces. So I put what looked to me like about 10 ounces of sesame oil. I didn't measure it specifically. I was just kind of eyeballing because we are looking to extract those oleoresins, and then we're going to kind of go up and down to find that sweet spot of how strong we want it to be, and that's going to be different for everyone. So you might, after making this, want to dilute it way down, or you might decide afterwards that you want to go and get some higher proof peppers and add it in there to make it stronger. You could certainly do that. If you wanted to do what we're about to do is called a charge. We're going to be charging this oil with the herbs, right? You could do a second charge if you were like, now this is namby-pamby, it's wimby, I want to make a good one. I'm going to go find some ghost peppers, I'm going to find some Carolina Reapers, and I'm going to extract those into it. You could take the oil when we extract it and have it ready, and put those peppers into it again and do a second extraction. You totally could do that, but this is going to be about a 1-to-5 extraction here. So I'm going to put this into my blender, and we're going to grind this because agitation is one of our tools for enhancing extraction. Hi from Australia. Oh, hi, Sue. Hi. Oh, Sue, it's so good to see you from Australia. What time is it over there? It's very, very nice to see your name, Sue. It's been a while. Okay, but also watch your ears because I'm going to put this blender on. Okay. Now I want to point out, you can sort of see a little bit of what almost looks like an emulsion forming here, right? And that's from that small amount of alcohol and the oil. This emulsions are great when we're looking at extraction because emulsions are showing that we're making these complex forms. So that is good. That's what you want to look at. Oh, it's 4:30 a.m. Oh, Sue, bless your heart. I missed you too, sweetheart. All right, if I wasn't doing this for a class, I'd do that for a little bit longer. It's not needed. I'm going to see it. It'll be pretty strong, but you can keep doing that until like you feel warmth on the sides of the of the container, right? And that shows that friction of blending for a long time. That's going to gently and slowly heat up the oil. But we're going to apply heat directly. So I'm not relying on this agitation to be my primary extraction. In the National Formulary Method, in Cami/Michael Moore's method, grinding it until the sides feel warm is the last step, and then you strain it out and then you're done. But here again, we're going to put some direct heat on here to really enhance extraction. We're going to get all of those oleoresins into this. So I'm going to pour the solution in here. And we'll get all of the good bits out from the bottom. Now I am using dried chilies here, right? We don't want to be using fresh chilies. Well, you can use fresh chilies, but different rules apply to infused oils made with fresh plants. And so this is not the method that you'll be using for that. All right, so we've got our oil in a Pyrex cylinder, and so I'm going to use my. This is just a heat hot plate, which is really great for heating heating this type of thing. Stirring. It's really cool. Also, here, let me. Boop, 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 boop. Was that powdered cayenne? Sue, no, sorry. I had discussed that. I'm sorry, I'm putting you down so you can see what's going on. It was whole cayenne peppers that I had. I had the last of last year's batch of cayenne pepper from Oshala Farm. And so I wanted to use it for something special, and so I thought, we'll use it for today. So no, it was whole cayenne peppers that were ground last night. So I ground them last night. And by using the whole peppers also, you can modify. If you know that you are namby-pamby, or maybe that, like, no judgment associated with my use of namby-pamby, of course. But you know, maybe your peppers are like really hot. You're going to use your homegrown peppers, but these are like big time ones. Well, you have the option of modifying that by taking out those internal membranes and taking out the seeds, right? Because that's where the capsaicin content is the highest. So you can also modify the strength of your peppers. If I had wanted to decrease the strength of this, because I was using the whole peppers from Oshala, I could absolutely have just de-seeded them and kind of taken out those internal membranes, and that would drop it down. I wanted all of that, of course, because that's the medicine that we're looking at. So I just kept that all. All right, so this is heating up. So generally, I would not do this with an infused oil, right? Because this is direct heat. And again, heat and oils don't mix. And heat and herbs don't mix, right? We don't always want this strong direct heat on our precious and delicate plants. But this is not a delicate plant. It is a precious plant, as all of them are, but it's not delicate. Because we really want, we're after those resins. We're just going to, we're going to focus on them. So I'm just going to heat this until it's like warm to the touch. One of the cool things that this has, okay, don't touch a hot plate because they're hot. One of the cool things that this has, and I'm not using this right now, because you wouldn't be able to see it anyway, is this has a magnetic stirrer in it. And I have a little, it looks like a big capsule, like a big vitamin capsule. And you pop it in the bottom and you can turn on the stirring engine, and this is a magnet that spins around, and the capsule is magnetized on one end. So when you turn on the stir, it just goes around and around and around, and so it stirs your method. Now remember, agitation is one of the ways that we enhance extraction, right? And so if you wanted to just kind of continually keep something at low temperature and just continually agitate it, that's another way to get that extraction up. I'm just doing my spoon because we don't need the thing, and you wouldn't be able to see it because this is such an opaque solution anyway. But you can see, right, organoleptic testing, you can see that we have started that extraction of the capsaicin oleoresins in there, right? How else would you check to see whether we are extracting capsaicin in here? Smell? Yep, except that oleoresins are big, big, big molecules, and so they're not carried by heat. I mean, they can be. We can taste it, right? Because capsaicin is spicy. You want to taste it?
Testing my metal today.
Slow it up. Like, okay, we're definitely getting that extraction, but it's not really, really hot yet. So we need a little bit more. Okay, now it's building. Yeah, because I got a big drip of it off of there. Yeah, we're definitely extracting it, right? So organoleptic testing is as easy as that. Am I extracting capsaicin? We'll taste it. Is it spicy? There you go. There's your capsaicin. We can see it in two ways. We've identified that. We can see the color because capsaicin is a red color, but there's other pigments that are also found in here. So we're not just seeing the capsaicin here. We are seeing some lycopene. Lycopene is a fat-soluble carotenoid. It's a red carotenoid. So it's the red pigment in tomatoes. And it's one of the red pigments that we see in other nightshades. This is another nightshade like tomatoes, right? So we see some lycopene in here, some carotenoids are also being extracted. We don't really care about them. It's nice that they're there, happy that they're there. We're just after the oleoresins. So it's feeling warm. So that's nice. Now, if you're at home, you don't have to do all of this. All you really have to do is grab whatever oil you cook with and put it in a pan, and grab your cayenne pepper and throw that in the pan with the oil, and then heat up the oil. Don't let it simmer. You don't want to let it simmer, but you want to heat it up until the oil turns red and you can taste the extraction of capsaicin, right? So you don't have to use all the fun toys. I got toys, so I'm going to use toys, because why wouldn't I use toys? But you don't have to. You can just, it's a pan and a stove, and it's going to take 10 minutes tops for you to make an infused oil, and that's allowing time for it to cool. All right, so I'm starting to see some bubbles forming on here, so I'm going to take it off. So it's hot enough that I've activated that sesamin content, right? I wanted to get it, just below simmering, because I want that change in the chemistry of the sesame oil, because that's going to protect this from rancidity. It's going to make the shelf life longer. All right, so I blend mine for about 5 minutes, then put it in my dehydrator for a few days. Dehydrators are great because you can get that heat, but not too much heat. And that's really, really beneficial if you're using something like, say, calendula or yarrow or elderflower or rose or any of the plantain, all of the herbs that we use for infusing oils. Those are really, really nice. I like... Well, and with a dehydrator also, you can adjust that temperature up or down. You might try increasing the temp for a little bit, just because oleoresins are stubborn. It just takes them a little while to extract. Play around with that, but I mean, it sounds like you've already got a system down, which is awesome. But yeah, dehydrators work great as a heat source. Instapots are also really good as a heat source. In the keep warm setting, it's like, it gets nice and warm, but not too warm, and you can set that for like 8 hours. I used to do yogurt setting is really nice if you want just a tiny little bit of heat. If you're extracting something like rose or elderflowers or something just ethereal and lovely and light and wonderful, then the yogurt setting of an Instapot, 8 hours at like 110 degrees. The keep warm setting is a little bit higher, but not much. But yeah, all sorts of good tools. So now we're going to strain this, and for this I'm not going to use any of my other straining tools. Will I get the same result using powdered cayenne from the supermarket? You will, as long as you check the Scoville heat rating on it. That's the primary thing. That's how you can tell the effect that it's going to have. If you've got a 70,000, sorry, this changed again. If you've got a 40,000 or higher up to maybe 100,000 is going to give you a pretty reliable effect there. You can totally grow higher. You can go get one of those 240,000 heat unit peppers and make it there. Just be mindful of the fact that the activity is going to be really, really strong, but you can always dilute it down, right? Just when you're done with it, when you do that test that Kat and I were just doing, testing for capsaicin, and it burns the crap out of your tongue, you know, I got to dilute that way, way, way down. Maybe you're going to put another quart of oil in there in order to dilute it down to a usable level. That's okay. Now you have a quart plus, 8 ounces of your infused oil. That's fine. Or maybe keep, some extra strong for when you want to step up, right? When you get to those later stages, when the milder form doesn't work anymore, you can go to that, or for other areas of your body. If you have maybe a different concentration that you would use on your leg and then you would use on your face. Don't use it on your face. So in straining, I like to use, these are paint strainers. So paint straining bags I use generally when I'm straining tinctures and oils. If you go to a home goods store, a hardware store, go into the paint section and you can find nylon bags. I meant to bring one in here, but they're nylon mesh bags. They look just like nut milk bags. They are basically nut milk bags. They're great for straining oils because they're nylon, they're not fabric, and so they're not going to absorb any of the oil, making that oil not available. If you've ever strained oil through cloth, through like a cotton cloth, that cloth absorbs a good couple of ounces of your oil is stuck in the cloth, and you can't wash it out. If you try, generally go rancid, and then the cloth is always smelling like rancid oil, and it's just funky. You can't do that. So the nylon mesh bags are great for straining oils because they're not going to hold on to any of your oil, and you can wash them really, really well, and they're going to go. However, with this, oleoresins are sticky. We talked about that at the very beginning. They grab onto stuff, and one of the things they're going to grab onto is also the nylon, so it can be a little bit difficult to rinse the capsaicin off of your nylon mesh bags. And so for that, I do like to use these little single-use mesh paint strainer bags. So I'm just going to pour our oil through here. And isn't it lovely? It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous color. Yeah, we can see. There we go. So we can see that beautiful capsaicin color. We're going to let that strain for a little bit. Now, one of the benefits to using whole peppers that I ground, well, let me back up a little bit. One of the downsides to using powdered herbs is that powdered herbs are generally powdered through use of a hammer mill. Hammer mill exerts hundreds of pounds of force, and so makes a really, really, really fine powder. Whenever you buy powdered herbs that are, fine like this ginger powder, you're never able to grind ginger that fine at home because you don't have a hammer mill at home, I'm assuming. The problem with that very fine grind of powders is that when you're extracting them, when you're straining them, they tend to compact down at the bottom. Whether you're making a tincture or glycerite, whatever it is, they just, because of their small particle size, because they're ground so finely, they just generally tend to make straining a little bit of a pain. Where when you grind your own, you're grinding to a larger particle size because you don't have a hammer mill at home, I'm assuming, and so the straining is easier. So that's just something to keep in mind. Also, sometimes the constituents, of course, are more unstable. Now, looking at oleoresins, they're super stable. You're not losing any oleoresins. If, like Ren, you were asking about getting the Cayenne at the store, yeah, just because it's ground instead of whole does not mean that you've lost any of the oleoresins, because they're not volatile, they're not unstable. When you're grinding those, certainly one of the concerns that we have is increased exposure of plant material means degradation and breakdown of sensitive materials, right? But oleoresin isn't a sensitive material. So it's not gonna be weaker because you buy the powder, where that would be definitely true if you were doing something like a powdered nutmeg or any aromatic, right? This isn't an aromatic. It's a sticky oleoresin. So we've got this lovely oil that has infused now. I'm gonna put this over here and allow you to continue here. And we have exactly 1 cup. That's so handy. We have exactly 1 cup of oil that we've infused. Now, optimally, what I would do is I would let this sit for 24 hours, because there are still some tiny little particles suspended in here. It's not perfectly clear. So if I let it sit overnight, then all those little tiny pieces are going to drop down to the bottom, and then I can decant it. Decanting is pouring off the clear oil off of the top and then leaving behind that residue. You can sort of see it starting to accumulate there. There's a little bit of those particles are starting, but they're just particles. It's just us. We're fine with particles. It's not a problem. All right, from here on in, it's super easy. We are going to take, since we have would you measure out 1 ounce of beeswax for me? We have 8 ounces of oil for your standard salve. We use 1 ounce. Yeah, coffee filter works well too. The thing that I like about this one is because so coffee filters sometimes break, right? Especially since I'm in here, I'm kind of stirring it around. This mesh is a little bit more stable than the paper filter, but absolutely coffee filters, yeah, any kind of single-use filter. I know we all like to reuse things and be mindful and be sustainable, but sometimes you just know. Okay, so when we're making a salve, standard salve is for every 8 ounces. 8 ounces by volume of your oil. That's 1 cup, right? So 8 ounces, that's 240 approximately milliliters for you folks, you metric folks. You're going to use 1 ounce or 30 grams of beeswax. Now you can use other waxes. If you're a vegan, you might want to use carnauba wax or candelilla wax. You can use soy waxes and coconut waxes. There's a lot of different types of waxes. You could also consider the use of butters. You could add in shea butter or cocoa butter to this formula to thicken it, right? You're going to have to add a considerably higher amount of butters, and it's going to result in a softer consistency product. But if that's what you want, then you absolutely can do that. So now, generally, when I am mixing oils and waxes together, I am going to put just a little bit of the oil in here, and then I'm going to put the wax in, and I'm going to heat that up together and let that melt the wax, and then add the oils afterwards. We'll do that with upcoming versions of this recipe. The reason that we do that is with those formulas, we're going to want to limit the heat that we're exposing the oil to. But we've already broke that, right? We're not doing that in this recipe. So I can just put all of the wax in here with the Cayenne. And we're just going to melt it. It's going to be a couple of minutes for it to heat up. We're just going to make sure that all of the wax is melted, dissolved into the oil, and then we will pour it into containers. Now you could add essential oils to this if you wanted, right? We've already ascertained there are no aromatics in here, right? We're looking at oleoresins. Do you want to add in the essential oils? This is going to be a question you want to ask yourself. Consider what the tissue is going to feel like when you have the cayenne applied to it, and consider how that changed skin, right? The skin that has a cayenne treatment is not going to respond the same to the presence of something like an essential oil to skin that has not been treated with cayenne, right? You've got that activation, you've got that heat, you've increased kind of sensory input in that area. Do you want to also add some essential oil? Do you want to throw some wintergreen in there? Do you want to throw some juniper berries or whatever essential oil? Maybe you do. Maybe that's going to work really, really well for your purposes in that formula. It's just a question you want to ask yourself. You want to, if I'm compounding these energetic patterns, these actions that are very, very strong, it's not a neutral state that we're looking at, right? It is a very strong state. You just want to ask, how is this going to feel on a range of different tissues? If you're just making it for your knee that has this pattern, that's fine. If you're making it as a general pain relief formula for a wide range of people, you're going to want to ask things like that. Is this product going to be applicable and helpful for a wide range of people? Or if I throw all of these really strong things at it, are those people who are more sensitive and more reactive going to not find this to be pleasant? Yeah, might relieve their pain, but the skin can be traumatized, right? The nerves have decreased in pain, but everything else is just annoyed as all get out. All right, we got a little bit more to go until we are melted. Now we could also, as soon as the wax is melted, we can also add preservatives, right? We can add vitamin E in there. However, we kind of took care of that already with the use of the sesame oil, right? We deliberately heated to enhance that extraction to be able to use that. And that's one of the cool things about being able to adjust your raw materials, right? If you understand kind of the nuances of the differences between sesame oil and olive oil and coconut oil, then you can use those to your benefit in choosing the oil to extract. This won't be the most beneficial oil to use with some of our later recipes, but we won't be using it for those. We're using it for this one. It's perfect for this one. So now you can see we have a liquid. The wax is completely, oh, I'm lying. Okay, now the wax has completely melted. You want to make sure that you get all of the little wax dingles, because if you don't get all the wax dingles, they can trick you. You think that they're all dissolved. You're like, oh, the residual heat will dissolve them. Famous last words, the residual heat will dissolve them, and it doesn't. And then you end up with these little balls of wax in your finished product. But that's not fun. So, Kat, what do you think? Do you want to add essential oils to yours? Or you want to just go? No, that was a very definite. Okay, there you go. We should get a couple of them. There you go. So we will pour this back into. So really, absent all of the chatting that they always hide. They do, Sue, exactly. They do. Absent all this chatting and discussion, la 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 la, this isn't going to take you, how long have we been here? An hour. It's not going to take you an hour to do this. It's going to take you 10 minutes. Because you're not going to be stopping and talking to people the way I am. There you go. And you can do what you do. One of these for me, and then the rest can go in there. Nice. Okay. Now, and that actually brings up. Yep. Not going to use essential oils. I think I like just the cayenne. We'll definitely add essential oils to the further things. So Sue, I think you came in late. This is the first in a series, or for anyone else who came in late, this is the first in a series that I'm doing of 4 the next 4 Mondays, we're going to be looking at making pain salves using different primary herbs and how and why they address pain. Because there's a lot of different ways to address pain, a lot of different herbs that we can use. And so by making these 4 different, the process is basically the same, right? Infuse something into oil and then thicken it with a wax and make a salve. But the difference in pain relief between Cayenne and Arnica and St. John's wort and comfrey, I know, right, Sandra? I know, I'm very excited about it. All 4 of those infused oils are really good for 4 different types of pain relief, for 4 different actions. So we'll end up with a little materia medica of 4 different infused oils that we can then pick and choose. And then from there, you can also combine those together, right? You might choose to make a pain relief blend that is like some cayenne and heavy on the St. John's wort and a little bit of comfrey for that deep tissue. And that's going to be a perfect pain relief formula for that specific pattern of the person in front of you, right? And that's always the best medicine making, is for the person who's in front of you. Yeah. Acadian Homestead, I didn't see you in there. Hi, yes, it is going to be a very fun one. So you come join me again next Monday and we will do the second one. The second one is Arnica. We'll be making Arnica salve. With the last half, I'm going to show you, this is a preview of next week. Now, Arnica is a big issue, right? There's issues of accessibility of Arnica right now, and also of proper identification of Arnica. There's a lot of different species, different plants that use the common name Arnica, but they're not real Arnicas, but have similar qualities, right? So we'll talk about all of that next week, but this is some of the last that I have of this gorgeous Arnica that I got from last summer. It was harvested in July of last summer, and we made a fresh plant. It was harvested in the Sierra Mountains and then sent to us overnight. Some of y'all remember I did an Instagram video. If you go on our Insta, you can see me making this infused oil right here. But we did a fresh plant extraction of Arnica, and I kind of want to get this used up because we're going to have, the next batch is going to be ready to go. I know, isn't it beautiful? And this was extracted in fractionated coconut oil. So the initial oil was a clear oil, and I did that because I wanted to be able to assess extraction, and I couldn't have done that with a golden oil. If I had extracted this in jojoba, there would have been no way for me to visually assess extraction because jojoba is golden, right? So for this one, I used a clear, completely clear oil. So we'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about Arnica. We'll talk about fractionated coconut oil next week. We'll talk about the difference in pain relief between Arnica and what did we use today? And Cayenne. Let me show you the finished salve. So we're on its way to being finished. So Kat just poured these out. So this is our salve that we made today. It's going to solidify over the next couple of moments, but you can see that gorgeous color. Okay, some of this is waxy because there's wax in it now. But yeah, it's definitely warm. So, so this can be applied directly to the skin for chronic pain disorders that are affecting the nerves, specifically for nerve pain. But also outside of pain relief, you could also use this just generally in places where you want to do improved circulation, right? You have cold feet all the time. You have cold feet when you go to bed at night. Take a little bit of cayenne salve and rub them onto your feet before you go to bed, and you will have warm feet. Rub those on and put some socks on, and you're set. So, so you can also think of it just as a pure source of heat. So last week's class, we were looking at reducing heat signs. Sometimes you want to increase that heat. What better way to increase heat than cayenne? Right? So there you go. Thanks so much for snug as a bug. Exactly. You'll have toasty toes. You'll also burn your toes. I did that once using a cayenne product on my feet because I'd broken my foot dancing. And so I was, I put the Cayenne, this was one of the first times I used it. I put it on, applied, okay, this is final little story as a cautionary tale. Put some on, thought, okay, that's gonna be good. And then did probably so many of you have done this. That wasn't enough. I have a feeling that just wasn't enough. I'm gonna do another application just to make sure that it's really gonna work. And so I did another application, and a couple minutes later, the first application hit, and then a couple of minutes after that, the second application hit, and then I had a foot that was on fire. So yeah, you don't. Shayna, hey Shayna, mwah, I love you, so good to see you. So don't do that. Allow your body time to process that information, right? You've just given those nerves a whole bunch of information in the form of Cayenne. Let it process the information before you decide, oh, hell yeah, we're just gonna go with more, right? So old hot feet, totally Sue. Sue, you go back to bed. I'm done here. So good to see you. Ren and Acadia, Shayna, God, I love you. I need to go down and visit you. Shayna, folks, is one of the best herbalists in California. She runs the Sage Country Herbs in San Diego, folks in Southern California. Yeah, you should check her out. Oh, you don't even have to be in Southern California, because if you want to just learn online, she has just exceptional foundational herbalism classes also online. So you can't do her field herbalism stuff. Oh my God, Kat, you would love Shayna's field herbalism stuff from what I've heard. I've never done it because I've never had time to, but I have a lot of students who've had, and she makes them just stand out in the middle of the rain, botanizing. Oh, Sue, love you so much. Mwah, love you all. I will see you next week. So next week we got Arnica. Week after that we will have Comfrey, and the week after that will be St. John's wort. We'll be looking at all of the different pain relieving applications for those. And by the time we get St. John's wort, it'll be about time for the St. John's wort harvest. Aren't I clever?
Yes.
I know, right? It's almost like I planned it. All right. All right. Yeah, we need physical hugs. Yes, please. Soon. All right. Love you all. I will see you soon. In the rain. Yes, botanizing in the rain. All right. I love you all. See you later. Bye-bye.